When the judge finally said the words "petition denied" and the gavel came down like the closing of a very long, very painful chapter, I, Renata Richter, felt something inside my chest break open, not with sadness, but with air. For the first time in years I could breathe all the way down to the bottom of my lungs. Max sat there in his cheap new suit, staring at the table. Lena's mouth was a thin, angry line. Their lawyer was already packing his briefcase, shaking his head like a man who knows he just wasted everybody's time and money. I stood up slowly. My knees did not shake. I looked at my son one last time, at the boy who used to run to me when he had nightmares, and I felt nothing but pity. Then I turned and walked out of that courtroom into the bright Arizona sunshine, 71 years old and finally, truly free. 3 months later the for sale sign went up in front of the little brick house on Maple Street where I had lived for 42 years. The same house where I rocked Max to sleep, where I cried when Robert died, where I sat at the kitchen table counting pennies so I could send $500 every first of the month to 2 people who never once said thank you. The house sold in 9 days. A young couple with a baby on the way. Cash offer. I didn't even negotiate. I just signed the papers and felt the weight slide off my shoulders like an old coat I had worn for far too long. Because I had already bought something better. I took every penny my husband Robert had left me, every dollar I had bled out of my retirement for 3 ungrateful years, every cent I had denied myself, and I bought a brand new casita in a guarded 55-plus community called Desert Vistas, 30 miles south of Phoenix. Gated entrance. Private streets. Palm trees and bougainvillea everywhere. And my new home, Unit 17C, had the most perfect second-floor balcony facing west, straight at the Superstition Mountains, so the sun painted the whole living room gold every single evening. The day the movers carried in the last box, I stood on that balcony barefoot, holding a glass of iced tea, and I cried. Not the quiet, ashamed tears I used to cry when the bank app showed another $500 gone. These were loud, messy, happy tears. Tears that said, "This is mine, all mine, and nobody can ever make me feel small again." The very first thing I did was go to the hardware store in town, the same kind Mr. Summer used to own back home, and I bought a small brass plaque. I had it engraved with exactly these words. This balcony was paid for with the $33,400. I no longer give away. Enjoy the view from the sidewalk. I hung it on the railing where every golf cart driving past could read it. Some of the neighbors slowed down, read it, and laughed out loud. Word travels fast in a retirement community. By the end of the week everybody knew the story of Balcony Lady. The second thing I did was march down to the guard shack with 2 photographs. One of Max, one of Lena. I handed them to Mike, the ex-Marine who works the day shift. "Mike," I said, "these 2 people are never, ever allowed past this gate. Not for Christmas. Not for funerals. Not if the world is ending. Understand?" Mike looked at the pictures, looked at me, looked at the plaque on my balcony visible in the distance, and he smiled the biggest smile I have seen on a man in years. He said, "Consider them banned for life. I'll laminate these and hang them right next to the solicitors and the Jehovah's Witnesses." And that was that. They found the new address, of course. They always do. Stalkers of money have a sixth sense. The first time they came was a Saturday afternoon in early October. The desert was still hot, but the evenings were starting to cool. I was on my balcony reading a book and drinking a prickly pear margarita that my new friend Eleanor had taught me to make when the house phone rang. "Only the guard and my sister Diana have that number." "Mrs. Richter," Mike said, trying to keep his voice professional, but I could hear the grin. "You have visitors at the gate. A Mr. Maxwell Richter and a Mrs. Lena Schuster Richter. They say it's an emergency." I set my book down, walked to the railing, and looked down the street. There they were. Their old Honda Civic with the cracked taillight, the same one I had paid to fix 3 times. Lena was very pregnant now, 7 months at least, standing next to the car with her hand on her belly like she was in a maternity commercial. Max looked thinner, his hair longer, his eyes red. I pressed the intercom button on the wall, the one that pipes my voice straight to the speaker at the gate. "Mike," I said calmly, loudly, clearly. "Please tell them the balcony is new and there is no room for people who only invite special people to their wedding." I watched Mike repeat my exact words into the microphone. I watched Lena's mouth fall open. I watched Max's face turn purple. I watched Lena start to cry those same crocodile tears she used to turn on whenever the rent was late. The gate did not open. They sat there for 20 minutes shouting my name. Some of the neighbors came out with lawn chairs and iced tea. Margaret from 14B started filming on her phone. Someone put it on the community Facebook page with the title Balcony Show, Season 1, Episode 1. It got 487 reactions in an hour. Eventually Max peeled out, tires squealing on the perfect asphalt. Lena was screaming at him in the passenger seat. I finished my margarita and went inside to make another one. They came back at Christmas. This time they brought presents wrapped in shiny paper and a fake little Christmas tree for my porch. They stood at the gate singing "We Wish You a Merry Christmas" off-key while Mike stood with his arms crossed shaking his head. I opened the balcony door, stepped out in my red velvet robe and fuzzy slippers, and raised my fresh margarita to them. Frohe Weihnachten, I called down in German, the language my mother taught me. Now go sing somewhere else. This community has noise ordinances. The singing stopped instantly. Lena threw the Christmas tree on the ground and stomped on it. Max dragged her back to the car. Mike called me later that evening. "Mrs. Richter, that was the best Christmas entertainment I've had in 20 years of working Gates." I sent him a tin of homemade Lebkuchen the next day. The third time was the night their daughter was born. I know because the hospital called me at 3:07 a.m. Lena had gone into labor 6 weeks early. She still had me listed as mother and next of kin on every single form because she never bothered to change it after the wedding. Why would she? I was always the emergency plan. The nurse sounded young and tired. This is labor and delivery at Banner Desert Medical Center. We have Elena Schuster-Richter in active labor and you're listed as the emergency contact and grandmother. I sat up in bed. The desert night was cool. I could hear coyotes in the distance. I opened the balcony door so the air would come in. I took my time. I was in no hurry. I put the phone on speaker and spoke slowly, clearly, the way I practiced in my head for months. "You have the wrong number, dear," I said. "I only help special people. And apparently I was never special enough to be invited to the wedding, so I think you better find someone else." There was silence on the other end. Then a soft, I'm so sorry, I hung up, turned the phone all the way off, closed the balcony door, crawled back under my cool sheets and the ceiling fan that hums like a lullaby. I slept better than I had since Robert died. The next morning I woke up to the most beautiful sunrise, pink and orange and purple over the mountains. I made coffee the way Robert taught me, strong, with a little condensed milk, just a little sweet. I took it out to my balcony. My neighbor Margaret was already on her patio below, watering her geraniums. "Good morning, balcony lady," she called up. "Heard the baby came early. Everything okay?" "Everything," I said, raising my mug, "is perfect." The community threw me a party the next week. They called it Balcony Liberation Day. Eleanor made a sheet cake with frosting that said "Welcome to the rest of your life." There were balloons shaped like margarita glasses. Someone hired a mariachi band. 78-year-old Alfreda got up on a chair and gave a toast that made half the room cry and the other half cheer. "To Renata," she said, "who taught us all that the best revenge is a life so good they can't stand to look at it." I danced that night. Really danced. With Mike the guard. With Margaret's husband George. With Eleanor's son who came to visit from California. I danced until my feet hurt and my cheeks hurt from smiling. 6 months later I took my first solo trip. 2 weeks in Italy. I sat at a cafe in Positano drinking espresso and watching the sea, and I realized I hadn't thought about Max or Lena once the entire day. A year after I moved in, the community elected me president of the social committee. Me. Renata Richter. The woman who used to apologize for taking up space. 2 years after the courtroom, I got a letter forwarded from my old address. No return address. Inside was a single ultrasound photo and a note in Lena's handwriting. "Her name is Emma Renata. We thought you might want to know." I looked at the tiny black and white image. A little face. My nose, maybe. Robert's chin. I held it for a long time. Then I walked out to my balcony, struck a match, and let the flame curl the edges until the paper turned to ash and floated away on the warm wind. I whispered to the mountains, to Robert, to the little girl I would never meet. Be better than your parents, little one. And if you ever need a grandmother who knows how to say no, you come find me. The gate knows my name. Then I went inside, poured myself a prickly pear margarita with extra salt, and turned the music up loud enough for the whole street to hear. This balcony is mine. The view is mine. The peace is mine. The guest list is exactly one person long. Me. Me. My name is Renata Richter. I am 74 years old now. I have the best seat in the house, and nobody will ever make me give it up again. And the gate stays closed. Forever.